Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the long hallway toward the council chambers. Her heart beat fast in her chest. Today was the day humanity would finally join the Galactic Council. After 30 years of peace talks and trade, Earth had done everything the Council asked. They built the right ships, followed the right laws, and proved they could work with other species. Sarah held the thick folder with Earth's application in her hands. Inside were thousands of pages showing how humans had changed. No more wars on Earth, clean energy everywhere, space colonies that worked together in peace. The folder was heavy, but not as heavy as the hope of 8 billion humans who wanted to be part of something bigger. The council chambers were huge. The ceiling went up so high that Sarah could barely see the top. Representatives from 47 different alien species sat in floating chairs arranged in a perfect circle. Some looked like tall, thin trees with silver bark. Others had 6 arms and eyes that changed color. A few looked almost human, but with blue skin and extra fingers. Sarah walked to the center of the circle. Her voice echoed when she spoke. "Honored council members, I present humanity's final application for membership. We have met every requirement you set for us. Our violent past is behind us. We offer our knowledge, our friendship, and our commitment to galactic peace." The Zephyrian delegate stood up first. His tree-like body swayed as he spoke. "The Council has reviewed humanity's application very carefully. We have also watched human behavior for 3 decades. Sarah smiled. This was going well. However, the Zephyrian continued, "We have serious concerns about humanity's true nature." Sarah's smile faded. "What concerns? We've followed every rule, every guideline you gave us." The Altarian delegate, with her 6 arms, spoke next. "Humans are too aggressive. Your species fought wars for thousands of years. This violence is in your blood. You cannot change what you are." "But we have changed," Sarah said, her voice getting louder. "Earth has been at peace for 20 years. Our colonies work together. You've proven nothing," interrupted the Corvin delegate. His blue skin seemed to glow with anger. "We've seen your military records, your battle strategies, your weapons. No peaceful species thinks about war the way humans do." Other delegates began to speak. Each one said the same thing in different ways. Humans were dangerous. Humans were violent. Humans could not be trusted. Sarah felt cold fear growing in her stomach. "You're making a mistake. Humanity wants peace. We've worked so hard to prove this to you." The Zephyrian delegate raised one long arm. "The Council has made its decision. All in favor of denying humanity's application for membership?" One by one, every delegate raised their hand or arm or tentacle. 47 species, all voting against humanity. Sarah could not believe what she was seeing. "This isn't fair. You led us to believe." "Furthermore," the Zephyrian continued, "the Council hereby passes Resolution 847 Omega. Humanity is declared a potential threat to galactic peace and stability. Effective immediately, all trade with human space is banned. All human colonies outside the Sol system must be evacuated. Any humans currently in Council space have 48 hours to leave or face imprisonment." The chamber filled with alien voices agreeing with the resolution. Sarah stood in the center, feeling like the room was spinning around her. "You can't do this," she whispered. "Our colonies, our people. Thousands of humans live in Council space. They have families, jobs, lives there. They should have thought about that before their species proved how violent they could be," said the Altarian delegate. "When did we prove that? We've done nothing but try to be peaceful." The Corvin delegate's skin glowed brighter. "Your own military records show battle plans for fighting Council forces. Why would a peaceful species prepare for war against us?" Sarah felt confused. "What battle plans? We've never made any plans to fight the Council." "The data doesn't lie," the Zephyrian said. "Humanity has been planning for conflict from the beginning. This vote today is just humanity's punishment for their deception." Sarah left the chambers in shock. Outside, her assistant Tom was waiting with a worried look on his face. "How did it go?" he asked. Sarah couldn't speak for a moment. Finally, She said, "They voted no, all of them, and Tom, they're cutting us off completely. Trade ban, colony evacuations, everything." Tom's face went white. "That's impossible." The preliminary votes were positive. The trade delegate said, "I know what they said." Sarah sat down on a bench. Her legs felt weak. "Something's wrong here, Tom. They mentioned battle plans, military records. They said we were planning to fight them. That's crazy. Earth doesn't have any plans to fight the Council." Sarah looked at him. "But our deep space fleet does have defensive strategies. Every military has contingency plans. That's normal, right?" Tom nodded slowly. "Of course. Admiral Webb's staff runs training exercises for different scenarios. That's just good preparation. They somehow got hold of those plans. But Tom, how did they get classified Earth military data?" Before Tom could answer, Sarah's communication device buzzed. A priority message from Earth. It was from Admiral Webb himself. Sarah read the message twice before she understood what it meant. Her hands began to shake. "Tom, we need to get home immediately." "What's wrong?" "Admiral Webb says he's been receiving broken transmissions from our deep space monitoring stations. The signals are heavily encrypted, but his people have decoded enough to understand what happened." Tom waited for her to continue. "The Council has been intercepting our communications for years, not just diplomatic messages. Everything. Military, plans, colony defenses, supply routes, even personal messages between our scattered families." "How is that possible?" Sarah stood up, her fear now mixed with anger. "Remember the communication technology the Zephyrians shared with us 15 years ago? The quantum relay system that let us talk instantly across vast distances?" Tom's eyes went wide. "They built a back door into it. Worse than that, Webb's message says the Council used our own tactical data to design weapons specifically meant to fight human ships. They've been planning this betrayal for years, maybe decades." They walked quickly toward their ship. Around them, other humans were doing the same thing. Sarah saw families carrying suitcases, looking scared and confused. Children were crying. Adults were making urgent phone calls. At the spaceport, Captain Rodriguez was waiting by their ship. His face was grim. "Ambassador, we need to leave now. Council security forces are already rounding up humans in the outer sectors. They're not waiting 48 hours. Sarah looked back at the Council chambers one last time. Through the tall windows, she could see the alien delegates still meeting. Probably celebrating, she thought. "Captain, send a message to Admiral Webb. Tell him the Council didn't just betray us today. They've been planning this for years. And tell him..." Sarah paused, feeling something hard growing in her chest. Something that felt like the old human anger the Council feared so much. "Tell him what, Ambassador?" "Tell him they were right about one thing. When humans feel betrayed, when our families are threatened, when our children are in danger..." Sarah climbed the ramp to their ship. "Tell him they're about to learn exactly how violent humanity can be." As their ship lifted off from the Council world, Sarah watched through the window as other human ships did the same. Dozens of them, all heading home to Earth, all carrying the same message. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They thought they understood humanity's capacity for violence. They thought they could control it, use it, and then throw humanity away when they were done. But humans had learned something in their violent past that the peaceful Council species had forgotten. When you back a dangerous animal into a corner, when you threaten everything it loves, it doesn't just fight back, it fights to win. Admiral Marcus Webb floated in zero gravity at the center of the command room. Around him, holographic displays showed the scattered pieces of humanity's broken empire. Red dots marked dead colonies. Yellow dots showed colonies under blockade. Green dots marked the few places where humans still held some control. There weren't many green dots left. 6 months had passed since the Council's betrayal. 6 months of watching human colonies die one by one. The blockade was choking the life out of humanity's expansion into space. Supply ships couldn't get through. Families were separated across light years with no way to communicate. Children born on distant worlds were growing up as prisoners. Webb was 53 years old. His hair had been gray before the crisis started, but now it was completely white. The stress of watching his species slowly die was eating him alive. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Kepler 442 system," said Lieutenant Torres from her communication station. Webb pushed himself over to the main display. "Put it through." The face of Colonel Sarah Cross appeared on the screen. Her expression was grim. Behind her, Webb could see the cramped interior of a stealth reconnaissance ship. "Admiral, I've got bad news from Kepler 442. The Council has moved all the human civilians to a single location. 300 people, including 47 children. They're calling it protective custody, but it looks like a prison camp to me." Webb felt anger rise in his chest. "Protective custody from what?" "From us, sir. The Council is telling people that Earth is planning terrorist attacks to rescue prisoners. They're using our own people as shields." Webb closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his voice was cold and controlled. "What's the security situation there?" "Heavy. 3 Council battleships in orbit. Ground-based plasma cannons, energy shields around the facility. They're taking this seriously." "Good," Webb said. Cross looked surprised, so he explained. "If they're scared enough to put that much protection around our people, it means they know we're coming for them." Webb turned to address the command room. "All department heads, conference room in 10 minutes, it's time." The asteroid base where humanity's fleet was hiding had been a mining operation before the war started. Now it was home to 2,000 of Earth's best military personnel and the largest collection of human warships ever assembled in one place. Ships from Earth's Navy, colonial defense forces, merchant marine vessels converted to military use, and even some civilian ships with weapons bolted onto their hulls. In the conference room, Webb looked at the faces of the people who would have to make this plan work. Commander Elena Vasquez sat to his right. She was 35 years old and had survived the massacre at Proxima Station by being smarter and more ruthless than the Council forces that attacked her. Her tactical mind was the sharpest Webb had ever encountered. Dr. James Park sat across from her. He was the civilian who had designed the artificial intelligence systems that let human ships coordinate their actions better than any other military in the galaxy. His computers could make 1,000 decisions in the time it took a living being to think one thought. Captain Lisa Chen commanded the Stealth Reconnaissance Force. Her ships could slip past Council sensors and gather intelligence that kept the human fleet alive. She was Ambassador Sarah Chen's younger sister, and she had personal reasons for wanting revenge against the Council. General Robert Kane led the Marine forces. His soldiers would have to board enemy ships and rescue prisoners while under fire. He was a big man with scars on his hands from years of fighting. Webb activated the holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a 3-dimensional map of Council space with human prisoners marked in red. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a choice to make. We can continue hiding out here, slowly watching our species die, or we can do something about it." Vasquez leaned forward. "The Council fleet outnumbers us 30 to 1. Their ships are bigger and have better shields. A direct fight would be suicide." "You're right," Webb said. "A direct fight would be suicide. But I didn't say anything about fighting fair." Dr. Park spoke up. "Admiral, I've been analyzing Council military doctrine based on the data we've collected. They haven't fought a real war in over 800 years. Their tactics are designed for policing actions and peacekeeping operations." "What does that mean for us?" asked General Kane. "It means they think like police, not like soldiers. They try to minimize casualties. They follow rules of engagement. They expect their enemies to surrender when the situation becomes hopeless." Webb smiled for the first time in months. "And we're not going to do any of those things." Captain Chen activated her own display. "I've been studying Council psychology reports that we captured from their diplomatic files. Most of their species evolved from prey animals. They're naturally cautious, they avoid risk. When something unexpected happens, their first instinct is to retreat and call for backup. So we give them lots of unexpected things," said Vasquez. She was starting to understand Webb's plan. Webb nodded. "The Council thinks they know how humans fight because they've seen our training exercises and war games. But those exercises were designed for fighting other humans. They follow rules. They have objectives like capture territory or destroy military targets. What kind of objectives are we going to have? Asked General Kane. Webb's expression became very serious. We're not trying to capture territory. We're not trying to destroy their military. We're not even trying to win a war. He paused and looked at each person in the room. We're going to dismantle their empire piece by piece. We're going to make them so afraid of humanity that they'll beg us to leave them alone. And we're going to rescue every single human prisoner they're holding, no matter what it costs. Vasquez pulled up tactical displays on her tablet. Admiral, I've been working on some new approaches based on ancient human warfare. Guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, psychological warfare. Show me. Vasquez stood up and moved to the main display. The Council expects large fleet actions, massive battles between hundreds of ships. But what if we attacked with small groups? What if we struck multiple targets at the same time across dozens of star systems? The display showed red arrows striking at Council positions from unexpected directions. They can't defend everything at once. Their fleet would have to spread out to cover all their vulnerable points. That makes each individual group weak enough for us to handle. Dr. Park added his own information to the display. My AI systems can coordinate attacks across light years instantly. We could hit 50 targets simultaneously and make it look like we have a fleet of thousands. Webb was getting excited. This could work. What about prisoners? How do we get our people out safely? General Kane stood up. That's where my Marines come in. We board their ships and facilities before they know we're there. Fast extraction. No time for them to hurt hostages. Captain Chen had been quiet during this discussion. Now she spoke up. Admiral, there's something else we need to consider. The Council has been monitoring our communications for years. They probably know we're planning something. Webb had thought about this too, which is why we're going to let them know we're coming. Everyone looked confused except Vasquez. She understood immediately. We want them to be afraid, she said. Fear makes people make mistakes. Exactly, Webb said. Dr. Park, I want you to design a communication virus. Something that will get past their security and broadcast on all their frequencies. What kind of message, Admiral? Webb thought for a moment. Tell them that humanity is coming for our people. Tell them that anyone who harms a human prisoner will face consequences, and tell them that this is their only warning. General Kane looked worried. Sir, won't that just make them hurt our people? No, Webb said. Remember, most Council species evolved from prey animals. When prey animals are threatened, they don't attack. They try to hide or run away. The Council will move our people to what they think are safer locations. And we'll be watching, added Captain Chen. My reconnaissance ships will track every prisoner movement. When they consolidate our people into fewer locations, it actually makes rescue operations easier. Webb looked around the room one more time. Are we all agreed? This isn't going to be a clean war. We're going to do things that will make the history books uncomfortable. But our children are dying in their prison camps, everyone nodded. Good. Elena, I want attack plans for 20 different targets. James, get your AI systems ready for full coordination mode. Lisa, map every Council military position between here and Earth. Robert, start training your Marines for shipboarding. Operations. As the meeting broke up, Vasquez stayed behind. Admiral, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you really think we can win this? The odds are impossible. Webb looked at the star map again. So many red dots, so many human lives depending on what they did next. Elena, the Council made one very big mistake. They think they know what humanity is capable of when we're angry. They've seen our history, our wars, our violence, and they've never seen what we're capable of when we're desperate. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like ghosts materializing from darkness. 12 ships total. Against 3 Council battleships and a heavily defended mining station, it should have been suicide. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, watching the tactical display. The Council forces were exactly where Captain Chen's reconnaissance had said they would be. 3 massive ships in a triangle formation, around the mining station. Plasma cannon emplacements on the station's surface. Energy shields protecting everything. "Admiral, they're scanning us," reported Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "They're demanding identification." "Open a channel," Webb ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Council lead ship. The captain was a Zephyrian, his tree-like form swaying with agitation. "Unknown human vessels, you are in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 847 Omega. Leave this system immediately, or face destruction." Webb stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "I am Admiral Marcus Webb of the Earth Fleet. I'm here for our people." The Zephyrian captain's bark darkened with what might have been confusion. "What people? There are no humans in this system except the ones under protective custody." "Those prisoners, you mean? They are being protected from terrorist actions by rogue human elements. Like you." Webb felt cold anger building in his chest. "Captain, I'm going to give you one chance. Release all human civilians to me immediately, and my ships will leave this system peacefully." The alien captain made a sound that might have been laughter. "Admiral, you have 12 small ships. I have 3 battleships and a fortified station. Surrender now and you will be treated according to galactic law." Webb smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Captain, you seem to misunderstand the situation. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to demonstrate something." He turned to Commander Vasquez at the tactical station. "Elena, execute Operation First Strike." What happened next would later be called the Kepler Massacre, though no human would ever apologize for that name. The human ships moved in a pattern that no Council military academy had ever taught. Instead of forming a battle line like civilized naval forces, they scattered like a pack of hunting animals. Dr. Park's artificial intelligence systems coordinated their movements with inhuman precision. The 3 Council battleships tried to respond, but their formations were designed for fighting other capital ships in organized fleet actions. They weren't prepared for small, fast ships that attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. The human ships were smaller, but they were also faster and more maneuverable. Years of operating in asteroid fields and navigating dangerous space had taught human pilots to fly in ways that terrified other species. Ship-to-ship combat began when the leading human destroyer fired its weapons at the closest Council battleship. But instead of the expected exchange of long-range fire, the human ship accelerated directly toward the enemy vessel. "Impossible," whispered the Zephyrian captain as he watched the human ship approach. "They're going to ram us." At the last possible moment, the human destroyer pulled up and over the Council ship, firing every weapon it had into the battleship's upper hull. The maneuver was so unexpected that the Council ship's defensive systems couldn't track it. More, human ships were doing the same thing. They flew like fighter aircraft rather than naval vessels, using speed and surprise instead of armor and shields. The Council forces tried to adapt, but they were fighting an enemy that didn't follow any rules they understood. Human ships would fire a few shots, then disappear behind asteroids before the Council could return fire. They attacked in groups of 2 or 3, concentrating their fire on single targets before moving on to the next one. "Admiral," called out the Zephyrian captain, his voice now showing fear, "your tactics are dishonorable. You're supposed to engage in formal battle lines." Webb's voice was ice cold when he responded. "Honor? You're holding 300 innocent people prisoner, including children. Don't talk to me about honor." The First Council battleship lost its shields 12 minutes after the battle started. Human Marines, led by General Kane himself, boarded the ship through holes blown in its hull. The Council crew tried to fight back, but they had never trained for boarding actions. Most of them surrendered within minutes. The mining station's plasma cannons were supposed to protect the area, but they were designed to fight large, slow-moving targets. The fast human ships were almost impossible to hit. Dr. Park's AI systems calculated the firing patterns of the automated defenses and guided human ships through the gaps. On the mining station, the human prisoners could hear the sounds of battle through the hull. They had been told that rescue was impossible. The Council guards kept saying that humanity's fleet was too small and too weak to challenge Council authority. The prisoners were wrong. The guards were wrong. Everyone was wrong. The second Council battleship was crippled when 3 human ships attacked it simultaneously from above, below, and behind. The council captain tried to surrender, but Webb was beyond accepting surrenders. Every council ship that had participated in the blockade of human space was marked for destruction. "Admiral Webb," came a transmission from the damaged council ship. "We yield." According to galactic law, Webb cut off the transmission and ordered the attack to continue. The human assault on the mining station itself began with something the council had never seen before. Human Marines didn't try to break through the main defenses. Instead, they used cutting tools to create new entrances in undefended parts of the station. General Kane led the first assault team personally. He found the human prisoners in a heavily guarded section of the station. 300 people, including families with small children. They had been living in cramped conditions for months, uncertain whether they would ever see home again. "This is General Kane of the Earth Marines," he announced as his soldiers secured the area. "We're here to take you home." An elderly woman started crying. A small child asked his mother if the soldiers were real. Teenagers who had spent half their lives in council space looked at the Earth military uniforms like they were seeing magic. The council guards tried to resist, but they weren't prepared for the controlled fury of human soldiers rescuing their own people. The guards were trained for peacekeeping operations, not combat against an enemy that had been planning this operation for months. The liberation of the prisoners took 47 minutes from start to finish. Loading them onto transport ships took another 20 minutes. The destruction of the remaining council forces took another 3 hours. When it was over, Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at the tactical display. 3 council battleships destroyed, the mining station crippled, all human prisoners safely rescued, 0 human casualties. "Admiral," said Commander Vasquez, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining council personnel." Webb considered this for a moment. "Patch me through to all surviving council forces." The communication channel opened to include everyone in the system who could receive it. "This is Admiral Webb. You came here as part of a fleet that was enforcing an illegal blockade against my people. You participated in the imprisonment of innocent civilians, including children." He paused, making sure his next words would be remembered. "I want you to go back to your superiors. I want you to tell them exactly what happened here today. Tell them that this was not a rescue mission. This was a demonstration." Another pause. "Tell them that if any harm comes to any human prisoner anywhere in council space, we will do this again. Tell them that we know where every human civilian is being held and we're coming for all of them." Webb's voice grew harder. "And tell them that what they saw today was us being merciful. We only destroyed your military forces. We only rescued our people. But if they push us, if they hurt our families, if they think they can wait us out..." The final pause was longer. "Tell them they'll learn what human vengeance really looks like." As the human fleet prepared to leave the system, Dr. Park's AI system sent out a coded transmission that would reach every human resistance cell in council space. The message was simple. "The fleet is coming. Hold on." On Earth, when news of the Kepler rescue reached the population, people celebrated in the streets for the first time since the blockade began. Children who had never known what it felt like to win cheered for the brave soldiers who had brought their friends home. But in the council chambers on Nexus Prime, there was no celebration. There was only a growing fear that they had made a terrible mistake. The Zephyrian delegate who had led the vote against humanity stood before an emergency session of the council. His bark was pale with shock. "Members of the council," he said, his voice shaking, "we may have underestimated the human capacity for warfare." In the back of the chamber, other delegates whispered among themselves. Words like massacre and ruthless and terrifying could be heard. The Altarian delegate spoke up. "How many ships did they lose in this attack?" "None," the Zephyrian replied. "Admiral Webb's fleet suffered 0 casualties." The chamber fell silent. "And our forces?" 3 weeks after the Kepler rescue, Admiral Zontar of the Altarian Navy stood before the largest fleet ever assembled in Council history. 500 ships from 12 different species, all united in a single purpose: destroy the human threat, once and for all. Zontar was old even by Altarian standards. His 6 arms moved with the confidence of someone who had pacified rebel systems across the galaxy. His blue skin had the deep color that came from decades of commanding respect through strength. He had never lost a battle. Communications to all fleet commanders, he ordered from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Peace. Today we end this human insurgency. These terrorists have struck at peaceful civilians and destroyed council property. Such actions cannot be tolerated. Around him, his bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. The Altarians had been the military backbone of the council for 3 centuries. Their ships were the largest, their weapons the most powerful, their tactics proven in dozens of conflicts. The fleet was positioned at the Vega Junction, a critical hyperspace crossroads that connected 7 major systems. Intelligence reports suggested the humans would have to pass through this area to reach their next target. It was the perfect place for an ambush. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "long-range sensors are detecting hyperspace distortions. Something's coming." Zontar straightened in his command chair. "How many ships?" "Difficult to tell, sir. The distortions are unusual." On the main display, the tactical plot showed swirling energy patterns that didn't match any known ship signatures. The human fleet was still too far away to identify individual vessels. "They're trying to confuse our sensors," Zontar decided. "Clever, but it won't save them. All ships prepare for battle. Formation Delta 7. The Council fleet moved into a classic defensive formation. Large battleships in the center, cruisers and destroyers forming protective screens, smaller ships ready to pursue fleeing enemies. It was a formation that had worked perfectly for 300 years. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly where intelligence had predicted they would. But instead of the small flotilla that Zontar expected, sensors showed over 100 human vessels. "Impossible," whispered the tactical officer. "Our intelligence said they only had 20 ships total." Zontar studied the display carefully. Something was wrong. The human ships were spread out across too wide an area. Their formation made no tactical sense, and some of the energy signatures looked strange. "Admiral Webb," Zontar broadcast on all frequencies, "you are outnumbered 5 to 1. Surrender now and you will be treated with mercy." The response came from multiple sources simultaneously, as if every human ship was speaking with the same voice. "Admiral Zontar, this is Admiral Webb. You have one chance to withdraw your fleet peacefully. Leave this system and no one needs to die today." Zontar's skin darkened with anger. The audacity of these humans was beyond belief. "You're in no position to make demands, Admiral. Surrender, or be destroyed." "Very well," came the reply. "You've made your choice." What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations, though not for the reasons Zontar expected. The human attack began with something that violated every principle of space warfare. Instead of forming battle lines and exchanging fire at long range, the human ship split into small groups and attacked from all directions at once. "Impossible," Zontar muttered as he watched the tactical display. "No fleet can coordinate that many simultaneous attacks across such distances." But the humans were doing exactly that. Dr. Park's artificial intelligence systems were coordinating the movements of every human ship in real time. What looked like chaos to the Council forces was actually a carefully orchestrated dance of destruction. The Council fleet tried to respond with their classic tactics. Concentrate fire on the largest targets. Maintain formation integrity. Follow the book. But the humans weren't following any book that Zontar had ever read. Human ships would appear from behind asteroids, fire everything they had at a single council vessel, then disappear before return fire could reach them. They used the asteroid field like cover, hiding among the rocks and debris that filled this part of space. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "I'm reading some very strange signatures from the human fleet." "What kind of strange?" "Some of these ships. I don't think they're ships at all." Zontar looked at the display more carefully. The operator was right. Mixed in with the real human vessels were decoys, Sophisticated holographic projections that looked like ships on sensors but weren't really there. "How many real ships are they using?" he demanded. "I estimate maybe 30 actual vessels, sir." Zontar felt cold fear creeping into his thoughts. 30 ships had created the illusion of over 100. The humans had made his massive fleet waste weapons fire on targets that didn't exist while their real ships struck at vulnerable points. The battle continued, but it wasn't really a battle, in any traditional sense. The Council fleet was large and powerful, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to stand still and trade shots. The humans struck like lightning, hit hard, and vanished before the Council could retaliate effectively. "Admiral," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from the destroyer Bright Hope." "What? How badly are they damaged?" "Sir, they're not damaged at all." Zontar stared at his subordinate. "Then why are they surrendering?" Before anyone could answer, more surrender signals started coming in. Ship after ship was giving up, even though many of them hadn't been seriously damaged. "Get me Captain Veltar on the Bright Hope," Zontar ordered. The captain's face appeared on screen. He was a young Corvan whose blue skin had gone almost white with fear. "Admiral, we can't fight these humans. They're not fighting like any enemy I've ever encountered." "Captain, your ship is barely damaged. Return to formation immediately." "Sir, with respect, you don't understand. They attacked us with a ship that was broadcasting surrender signals." Zontar felt confused. "What do you mean?" "A human destroyer approached us broadcasting that it was surrendering and asking for safe passage to a prisoner transfer point. When we lowered our shields to accept their surrender, they opened fire at point-blank range. That's against every law of warfare." "Admiral, I don't think they care about our laws. Similar reports were coming in from across the fleet. Human ships that pretended to be damaged, then exploded when Council vessels approached to offer assistance. Human fighters that hid inside wreckage and ambushed passing ships. Human Marines who boarded Council vessels by hiding inside fake debris fields. The worst part was the psychological effect. Council crews had been trained to fight honorable enemies who followed accepted rules of engagement. They weren't prepared for an enemy that used deception, misdirection, and pure cunning as weapons. "Admiral," called his tactical officer, "the human fleet is requesting communication. Put them through." Admiral Webb's image appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Zontar could see the bridge of a human warship. It looked different from Council vessels, more cramped, more efficient. Everything designed for war rather than comfort. "Admiral Zontar, you have fought bravely. But this battle is over. Order your ships to stand down." Zontar's pride flared. "I have 500 ships, Admiral Webb. You have 30. I have 30 ships that have already destroyed or disabled over 100 of yours." And Admiral Webb leaned forward, and Zontar could see something in the human's eyes that made him afraid. "I haven't even started using my real weapons yet." As if to prove his point, the human fleet suddenly changed tactics again. Instead of hit-and-run attacks, they began launching what appeared to be small drones toward the Council ships. "TI. Defense systems, target those drones," Zontar ordered. But the drones weren't attacking the ships, they were attaching themselves to the hulls and doing something. "Sir," reported the sensor operator, "the drones appear to be broadcasting some kind of signal." "What kind of signal?" Before anyone could answer, every communication system on every Council ship began playing the same message simultaneously. It was a recording of human children singing a lullaby. The same lullaby that human children had been singing in the prison camps while they waited for rescue. The psychological effect was devastating. Council crews who had been told they were fighting dangerous terrorists suddenly realized they were fighting people trying to rescue their children. But worse than the lullaby was what came after it. A woman's voice, calm and clear. "Council forces, this is Captain Lisa Chen of Earth Intelligence. We have been monitoring your communications for the past 6 months. We know the real locations of every human prisoner in Council space. We know which ships carry weapons designed specifically to kill humans. We know which Council members voted for the blockade." The voice paused. "And we know which of you have families." Zontar felt ice water in his veins. The humans were threatening to target Council civilians. It was unthinkable. It was against every principle of civilized warfare. "Captain Chen," he broadcast, "threatening civilians is a war crime." The response came from Admiral Webb. "Admiral Zontar, you've been holding our civilians prisoner for months. Our children have been dying in your camps while you debate their fate in committee meetings." 1 year after the Council's betrayal, Admiral Webb's fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system. The sight before them would have been impossible to imagine when this war began. The once mighty Council home fleet was scattered in a desperate defensive formation around their capital world. 60 ships total. A year ago, they had commanded thousands. Webb stood on the bridge of the Retribution, studying the tactical display. Around him, his officers worked with the quiet efficiency of people who had learned to fight a war that no military academy had ever imagined. Commander Vasquez reported from the tactical station. "Admiral, we count 63 Council vessels. Mixed classes, but they're staying close to the planetary defense grid." "Any sign of civilian evacuation?" Webb asked. Captain Chen, now serving as intelligence officer, consulted her reports. "Massive exodus over the past 3 months. Most government officials and their families have relocated to outer systems. The planet's population is down to essential personnel only." Webb nodded. The Council leadership wasn't completely stupid. They knew what was coming. Dr. Park looked up from his AI coordination station. "Admiral, I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures from the Council fleet. They appear to have weapons we haven't encountered before." "New weapons designed specifically to fight us?" "That would be my assessment, sir." Webb felt a moment of grim satisfaction. "Good. It means they've been taking us seriously." Over the past year, the human fleet had systematically dismantled the Council's military presence across 3 sectors. Not just defeating their forces, but destroying their ability to project power. Shipyards had been reduced to debris. Supply depots had been captured or eliminated. Training facilities had been shut down. More importantly, the Human Liberation Campaign had rescued over 10,000 civilians from Council detention centers. Each rescue operation had been planned with meticulous care, executed with ruthless efficiency, and concluded with the complete destruction of any Council forces that resisted. The psychological effect on Council military personnel had been devastating. Surrender rates in recent engagements had exceeded 70%. Experienced officers were resigning rather than face human forces in battle. Entire species were withdrawing their ships from Council service. "Admiral Webb," came a transmission. From the Council flagship, "This is Admiral Thexran of the Council Defense Force. I am authorized to discuss terms for a ceasefire." Webb recognized the name. Thexran was one of the few Council officers who had shown genuine tactical competence during recent engagements. He was also the admiral who had ordered the execution of 30 human prisoners when his supply base was threatened. "Admiral Thexran," Webb replied, "the only terms I'm interested in discussing are the complete and unconditional surrender of all Council forces." "Admiral Webb, surely we can reach some accommodation. The Council is prepared to offer substantial concessions." Webb looked around his bridge at the faces of officers who had spent a year watching their families die in Council prison camps. Men and women who had seen footage of human children being used as shields during military operations. "Admiral Thexran, a year ago Ambassador Chen stood in your Council chambers and begged for peaceful coexistence. You responded by imprisoning our civilians and blockading our worlds." Webb's voice grew colder. "You had your chance for accommodation. Today, you're going to learn the consequences of betraying humanity." The battle for Nexus Prime began differently than previous engagements. Instead of the fast-moving, deceptive tactics that had characterized human operations, Admiral Webb ordered a direct advance toward the Council defensive line. The Council forces opened fire at maximum range, unleashing their new weapons. Particle beams designed to overload human ship systems. Guided missiles with warheads specifically calibrated to penetrate human armor. Energy fields that could disrupt the AI coordination systems that gave human fleets their advantage. For the first few minutes, it looked like the Council's new weapons might actually work. Several human ships took heavy damage. 2 destroyers lost power completely and began drifting. But then the human fleet demonstrated why a year of constant warfare had made them the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. Instead of retreating, when faced with superior firepower, the human ships adapted their tactics in real time. Dr. Park's AI systems analyzed the new weapons' capabilities and developed countermeasures within minutes of first contact. Ships that had been damaged continued fighting with reduced capability rather than withdrawing. Vessels that lost main power switched to backup systems and kept advancing. When conventional weapons proved insufficient, human ships began using improvised tactics that shocked even their own crews. The destroyer Vengeance, having lost most of its weapons to council fire, accelerated directly toward an enemy battleship and detonated its own reactor at point-blank range. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also created a gap in the council defensive line. Other human ships followed through that gap like water through a broken dam. "This is impossible," Admiral Thexeron transmitted to his fleet commanders. "They're fighting like madmen. No sane military force continues advancing after taking that much damage." But the humans weren't fighting like a sane military force. They were fighting like people who had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. General Kane's Marines had developed new boarding techniques during the year of constant warfare. Instead of trying to capture enemy ships intact, they focused on rapid elimination of resistance, followed by immediate destruction of critical systems. When the Marine assault ship Guardian reached the Council flagship, Kane personally led the boarding party. They cut through the hull in 4 places simultaneously, overwhelming the ship's security forces through pure aggression. Admiral Thexeron found himself face-to-face with the human general in his own command center. Around them, his bridge crew lay dead or unconscious. The battle had lasted less than 10 minutes. "General Kane," Thexeron said, his voice shaking with fear and disbelief, "I surrender my ship and crew." Kane looked at the alien admiral with cold eyes. "Where are the human prisoners from the Tau Ceti facility?" "What prisoners? I don't know." Kane drew his sidearm and pointed it at Thexeron's head. "Admiral, 37 human civilians were executed when my forces approached your supply base last month." "You gave that order personally?" Thexeron's skin changed color with terror. That was a military necessity. The prisoners were children," Kane finished. 17 of them were under the age of 12. For a moment, the only sound on the bridge was the hum of failing life support systems. "General Kane," Thexeron pleaded, "I am a prisoner of war. The Galactic Conventions—" "What conventions?" Kane asked quietly. "You threw out all the conventions when you started murdering our children." The sound of the gunshot echoed through the Council flagship's bridge. By the time the orbital battle was over, the Council's home fleet had been completely destroyed. Not defeated, not scattered, but annihilated. Of 63 ships, none survived. The planetary defense grid lasted another 4 hours before being systematically dismantled by human engineering teams who had spent months studying captured Council technology. When the last defensive satellite was destroyed, Admiral Webb opened a communication channel to the planet below. "Citizens of Nexus Prime, this is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Earth Fleet. Your military forces have been defeated. Your orbital defenses have been eliminated. Your planet is now under human control." He paused, looking at the blue-green world that had been the center of galactic civilization for over 1,000 years. "However, Earth has no interest in conquering your world or ruling your people. We came here for one purpose only, to ensure that humanity is never again betrayed by those we trusted." Another pause. "The Council chambers where humanity's application for membership was rejected will be destroyed. The military installations that supported the blockade of human space will be eliminated. The detention facilities where our people were imprisoned will be reduced to rubble." Webb's voice grew harder. "But your civilians will not be harmed. Your non-military infrastructure will remain intact. Your people will be free to rebuild their government however they choose." The final pause was the longest, with one condition. "Any future government on this world will formally recognize humanity's right to exist and defend itself. Any attempt to interfere with human space, any aggression toward human colonies, any threat to human civilians anywhere in the galaxy will result in our immediate return. And next time, We will not be so merciful. The destruction of the council chambers was broadcast across the galaxy. Human engineers used controlled explosions to bring down the massive crystalline spires where Ambassador Chen had been humiliated, and humanity had been declared a threat to galactic peace. As the towers fell, they took with them the last symbol of the galactic order that had existed for millennia. 3 days later, Admiral Webb's fleet departed Nexus Prime, leaving behind a world that would never forget the consequences of betraying humanity. But the human fleet didn't return to Earth. Instead, they began a systematic patrol of the space lanes that connected the remaining Council worlds. Their mission was simple: ensure that human civilians could travel.